Hey there, my name is Rachael and welcome to the Magdala podcast. We at Magdala know from experience that pornography, masturbation, and other sexual addictions are not just a guy problem. The need for women to be accompanied in a journey towards healing from addiction has gone sorely unmet, and that's why we're here. Magdala exists as a space where women can find hope, healing, and freedom alongside each other from sexual addiction. Our goal is to supply you with support, community, and accountability. Here on the podcast, you'll find everything from testimonies to practical advice to dialogue about how to heal and live fully as a Catholic woman. Wherever you are in your journey, know that you're not alone, and we welcome you to this table. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Magdala podcast. I have a very special guest with me. Mary Jo is Magdala's co-founder and the real OG. The realest of the reals.
What does OG mean again?
Original gangsta.
Oh, sweet. Sick. Yes. I always tell people I went to a ghetto high school and they're like, no, you're too, And I'm like, no, really.
I did.
It was Rachael.
Oh, my word.
Everybody walked around. The slang of the year when I was a freshman was skins.
So, okay.
Which meant like someone's telling a lie.
Really?
Like if you said something and it was just like crazy, I'd be like, and sometimes they would like slap their own hand. They'd be like, skins, bruh.
Interesting.
But in honors biology, sometimes the smarties would say epidermis, which was a lot less cool. But
that's kind of sad. I was gonna say
it was
that's
like
sad.
gangsta meets nerd. Gangsta nerds.
So Tommy, my husband, is a high school campus minister and theology teacher at an all boys high school, and he says the word that the youths are using right now is drip.
Oh yeah, drip is a big one.
Like, but I don't totally get, like, what does.
Well, I think that
does it just mean cool? Does it mean like stylish? What does it mean?
Drip definitely has like a connotation of stylish.
Also, how do you know this and I don't is the question worth asking.
Hey Julie, heard you got that drip, drip, drip. Something about that. Okay, like have you heard that song?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's I'm pretty sure he's singing about, like, I think Julie is actually like a cute little, like, I can't tell if he's saying Julie. Well, yeah, the song says Hey Julie, but what he's really saying is like Hey Jeweler. Or maybe I might be completely off, but I'm pretty sure he's like, Julie is just a cute little like nickname for Hey Jeweler. I heard you got the drip. Something, to make me look flashy and cool.
Okay. So it is like a okay, because they would say like you got that drip.
Yeah, and the reason why I can't get this song out of my head is because I now work for a woman named Julie, and every single time she sends me an email or a text, I get to hear that song in my head. Welcome to my brain.
Well, there are worse things. Well, now that we've, analyzed cuss words and
Hey Julie,
what the youths are saying.
Heard you got that drip, 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 drip.
Oh, my word. Oh, my word.
That's an old song, too. That's kind of funny that they're still saying drip.
That is like he says that's a big one right now.
Huh.
But shows how out of touch I am. Anyway, I'm just at home with my baby fighting porn in my free time.
Well,
that's fine.
Listen, we're all here to support you and keep you dripping. So
thank you.
No worries, girl.
But anyway, we're talking about fertility awareness and recovery today, and I'm kind of surprised that we haven't done an episode entirely on this yet. I know we mentioned it, I think, in an episode on like practical tips for recovery, because this is like essential. At a certain point.
This is listen, I don't even care if you've ever looked at porn, masturbated, fantasized, read a lot of erotic literature or whatever. Get to know your body. If you're a woman with ovaries and breasts, just I shouldn't say it that way. If you're a woman,
this train is going south fast.
If you're a woman, get to know your body. Do yourself a favor. And I don't mean that in like the way of sexual exploration. Which is what most people would mean when they say that. When I say get to know your body, what I mean is like learn about yourself.
Well, yeah. I mean, first, just for health in general, most of women's health care is Band-Aid solutions.
Yeah.
Birth control. is a Band-Aid.
Yeah. No one wants to tell you what's actually up inside of your body, which is depressing.
Right.
It matters.
And I discovered in pregnancy that most of OB care is Band-Aids. Not much talk about what's actually going on in pregnancy and how to help myself have a healthy pregnancy. So that was unfortunate. All depends on your practitioner though. But I think fertility awareness is the first step in, for lack of a better term, empowering yourself in healthcare as a woman.
Awareness is the first step in recovery.
Oh gosh.
Everybody always says that.
That is true. It is true. You have to admit that there's
awareness
a problem.
is just the first step, like, period. The end.
In just virtue.
Yeah.
And growth.
Anything.
That being said, I think, yeah, it's funny to me though, like how frequently I have conversations where women, because we live in a culture, I know it's not this way in every country, but I know in our country specifically, because we have so many Band-Aid solutions for women's healthcare. Yeah, like when I'm speaking with women, they're like, yeah, for some reason I just binge pornography once a month. And I'm like,
what's up with that?
Yeah. But yeah, but and it's not like it's nothing to say about their intelligence, like that. It's just this, we're not taught this.
No, they have no idea what the hell is going on.
Right. Typically that once a month binge is around ovulation. That's typical. I know you had a different experience and I want you to get into that.
Yeah.
But if we understand like how our hormones work, right? Because there's the 4 phases of the cycle, which you're going to be able to probably lay them out better than I at this point.
Yeah, just in the basics.
But yeah, you have menstrual, which is kind of sometimes the only one that women are actually aware of because it's your period. It's
pretty freaking obvious.
It's pretty obvious. It makes itself known. And then after your period, you have
the follicular phase.
Right.
Which is when your follicles are preparing to... Okay, I'm going to murder this. I'm so paranoid I'm going to get this wrong. But you're basically preparing to release an egg.
Yeah.
And then ovulation.
Yeah.
Egg is released. That's the phase that most women associate with being easily aroused. Mm-hmm.
Which, can we pause?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of want to name that good because...
That's a sign of health.
It's very healthy. Because, and it's really beautiful because it's your body literally saying, I want to have a child.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Make me a baby, please.
Yes.
That's what the ovaries say. Just like that. Excuse me. Could you make me a baby, please? And then
that's what ovaries sound like. That's the accent that they have.
And then if you fail,
come to Magdala where we give ovaries accents.
And
people are going to listen to this and think we're nuts. You have to calm down.
Come on. They already thought that.
They already know.
And then there's the luteal or
luteal,
what some people call post-luteal phase, which is really what people think of as PMS. And then if you don't make a baby, then your ovaries go, oh no, it's time to shed the lining. And then it all starts over again. Right. Like a big hamster wheel of madness.
Yeah, and the hormones that rise and dip during those phases too is something very good to be in tune with, because not only does it affect your emotional state, typically speaking, some women experience their cycle without too much fluctuation of emotion, and I just want to say to those women, lucky you. Most people do experience that fluctuation. I also want to point out it is not healthy to experience tumultuous menstrual cycles. No. I think we've very much normalized that again in our culture of birth Band-Aid healthcare.
Okay, we're gonna need a full edit on that.
In our culture of Band-Aid healthcare, oh Lord, we've normalized a ton of pain or emotional turmoil. Which is
horrible. People show up to an OB-GYN and they're like, I'm bloated and I feel like death. Oh, don't worry. That's normal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Is it?
Is that helpful?
Is it? Yeah, because typically it's a sign of hormone imbalance. And hormone imbalance can sometimes be an easy fix and can sometimes be a very difficult one, all depending on how grave the imbalance is. A lot of us experience it because of environmental toxins, because of nutrition,
because we're human,
like all sorts of things.
But you don't have to accept it.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly.
Like you can quit PMS. You can you can try. You can do things that will change.
You can greatly subdue it.
Yes.
To be sure.
Absolutely.
I think you're going to experience that dip no matter what.
Yeah.
But it can be very, very, very subdued. But it takes a lot of intentionality and a lot of work. But I think women, do typically experience heightened sexual temptation, even if you're engaging in whatever sexual addiction or compulsion or sin is a part of your life. Even if you're engaging with it throughout the month, it's probably heightened during ovulation. And again, because of at the bottom of it, a very good reason. Like easily aroused, like sex is more at the forefront of your mind. It's just a very it's a very vulnerable time. But I think learning to track your cycle, aside from just being a healthy thing to do, when you're recovering as a woman, it should be like a necessary part of your game plan. It wasn't part of mine in the initial part of my recovery. And I regret that heavily because I didn't get some necessary insights until later when I did learn Creighton.
Me either,
in
to
college.
be honest. Even though I actually learned to chart when I was 19 freaking years old. Like, I was really young.
I think I was 20.
Okay, so same. So, like, I learned to chart young, but for some reason, I didn't think to myself, I should apply this to my recovery.
Right.
Like, the thought did not cross my head. I think because even though I knew about like the patterns of temperature and cervical mucus and things, somehow the knowledge about like arousal, or in my story, actually more so like the susceptibility and vulnerability of my mood and cognition during the luteal phase, the PMS season. That never really entered my awareness for some reason for several years as a factor.
Wow.
And everything. So that's interesting, how it works. So that's why we're doing this here. We're here to tell you today, maybe you should consider the possibility that they're related.
Yes.
Because for some reason we didn't for a while.
They are.
And surprise, it was.
Well, and I think a lot of women, it should be a source of grace for us, right? Because men's hormones are, if you look at the two side by side at like hormonal levels in men and in women, men's, it's like a nice flat line. Ugh. It's just a line.
To know what that feels like,
I have no idea. And then I remember in NFP they had us do this, like looking at, okay, this is what his hormones look like and this is yours, and it's like it's like something out of Roller Coaster Tycoon. It is. Yeah. I just dated us by saying Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Rachel.
Anyway, but it's like a roller coaster, right? Like you're going up and down, up and down, up and down. And that should be a source of grace for us. I think when we're in recovery, is there are physiological reasons behind temptation. It's not because you're a loser. It's like there are physiological reasons why you're more susceptible right now. So it's more about how do you arm yourself in those susceptible seasons.
Right.
Because when you become aware that they're going to come, you're not responsible for that. Like you are responsible for what you know.
Sorry to everyone listening. You are now responsible.
Oh my gosh. I hope like people understand, like this is the second podcast episode we've sat down to do this evening and we have Prosecco. And
we're both lightweights, y'all.
We are not drunk.
Drunkenness
is a mortal sin.
We would never do that.
But alcohol loosens you up to speak about sexual sin in a little more flagrant of a manner? Perhaps it does. It does.
It's helpful.
Yeah. It's why it's like recreational. Alcohol is very recreational. It's because it opens you up.
Yeah.
But no, we're not advocating for
and also
any
like
sort
this
of,
is me normal. So.
Don't alter your intellect. It's where the image of God is located. Don't do that. Anyway, yes, if you have knowledge of your fertility cycle as a woman, you are responsible, especially in the area of sexual sin, for being prepared for it and for taking care of yourself. And there's so many different practicalities of like how to participate with your cycle. I think it's Evie magazine. I wrote a couple pieces for them. I did freelance writing for a season, and they had me write really interesting stuff about like The Bachelor and like reality TV, and then like exercise, and also all sorts of things. Anyway, they're a publication that's largely dedicated toward virtue, but they still keep it in somewhat secular language. So
yeah,
it's a really interesting publication. But they just came out with an app called 28, where it's nutrition and exercise according to your cycle.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, they recommend workouts and meals and practices based on your cycle. It's genius. I logged into it when they put it out. I was still pregnant at the time though, so I just was like confused. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this because I have no cycle right now, because I have a baby. But so yeah, but I think what resources like that are teaching us is that our menstrual cycle is a vital sign, and we're meant to participate with it. We're not meant to, shove it aside. We're not meant to band-aid it. We're not meant to tolerate it if it's out of balance. We're supposed to let it be some sort of like a clock that we live by. And there are ways to allow it to really inform how you care for yourself.
Yeah, like not even just a clock, but like, because I kind of see what you're saying. Like there are certain times of the month to prioritize activity, and there are certain times of the month to prioritize rest.
Yes.
But the health of the cycle overall is also like an indicator of how well are you taking care of yourself, which is so necessary to listen to.
Yes.
As women.
Yes.
And the moment that I realized that exercise and diet actually should be fluid and change a bit over the course of my cycle, that was a life-changing moment. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I used to eat, when I was first becoming, I did a slew, and I think I've spoken about this before, but I did a slew of nutrition protocols. Like if you can name it, I've tried it.
It's true.
And at some point in that journey, like my nutritionist had to tell me like that, that my focus on healthy eating was a little bit obsessive. But I sort of at some point came to this place where I was like, okay, every day I'm going to have, heavy protein and some carbs and maybe a little bit of fruit or whatever for breakfast. Okay. Strict paleo for breakfast. Lunch, let's just have a salad so we don't fall asleep in the afternoon. Okay. Dinner, that's where we'll put the starches. And actually, like more or less that system does work. But once I realized that I needed to be eating for my cycle, that was a game changer.
Right.
I started to realize like, no, actually when you're in PMS, maybe it's okay to have a sweet potato for lunch,
right?
Or some quinoa. Like it's not going to mess you up for life, to have a little more starch in that second half of the cycle and plan for it.
Yeah,
that's actually a protective measure to keep you from, eating like if you really needed a starch, but all you had was a salad.
Right.
And trust me, I'm not talking about a normal salad. Like my salads, they're robust. But no matter how robust your salad is and how filling it is, if what your body needed was a starch, you're going to go home from work at 6:00, ravenous, and like binge eat that pizza.
Right. Well,
and you didn't want to do that. And for me, that behavior was like often hand in hand then with shame, isolation, and compulsive sexual behavior.
Well, that's what
like eating is
clear.
So related. Eating
talking,
is so related.
It's like even the self-discipline of taking ownership of your cycle, of taking ownership of how it informs your life. Like that's a huge step in recovery. It's just taking ownership And it's a very, we've all been in that phase of PMS, I think, where we're like, I'm just going to get a pint of Ben and Jerry's and go home and watch 10 things I hate about you. Like, it's like, that's fine. Do a face mask and eat ice cream. Yeah. And I get it. Like,
and there can be a healthy version of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not against that in practice. But when you're in recovery, you have to find the beautiful balance between like white knuckling and laziness and apathy and like giving into all of your passions, right? Like you have to find the balance in between. And I do think that balance is authentic self-care. Yeah. I hate the phrase self-care as the modern world uses it, because usually it means get a pint of Ben and Jerry's and watch 10 things I hate about you.
Just giving in to whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Not so.
When authentic self-care and actually caring for your dignity and the dignity of your body is often involves nutrition, exercise, the things that help shape you into a healthier person.
Yeah, authentic self-care is like you wake up PMSed as hell, say to yourself, maybe it's okay to do Pilates today instead of my intense CrossFit workout.
Yeah, please don't do strength training during PMS.
I mean, every day is different, but if you wake up and you're like, I feel weak, like, oh, guess what? It's okay to
not
just
heavy strength
do
training,
something.
Because Pilates is technically body weight training.
It is, yeah. Like, trust me, like Pilates can be difficult. We've been doing Pilates together for the last couple of days.
I did Pilates all during
pregnancy. The burn is real. The burn is real. But maybe that's an ideal time to roll out of bed, do some Pilates instead of, deadlifting your max, and have some, sweet potato quinoa for lunch with some good, red meat. Listen, ladies, have a steak. Listen.
That's self-care. Get yourself a steak.
Seriously, I say this to like every woman I know. So any woman I know listening to this is going to be like, oh, she's a broken record. But seriously, like, you're about to lose a lot of iron. Have a freaking steak.
Yeah.
Like, when you start to feel like your mouth is a black hole because you're just so hungry, you need a steak. Okay.
You need red meat.
Red meat. And starch, live it up. And then when you have a couple scoops of Ben and Jerry's that night, it's not going to be a shameful thing. It's going to be a celebratory thing.
Yeah.
Listen, you could have ice cream in either one of these scenarios, but what do you want? The one where you're like, oh, I'm going to give in, quote unquote, to quote unquote self-care, and just like let my desires run rampant, or I'm gonna take care of myself like a boss and celebrate with a bowl of ice cream at the end of the night.
Yeah, true.
Like
leisure. Yeah, I think a lot of healing comes because sexual sin is such an affront to the dignity of our bodies. Like, a lot of healing comes just in calling it good. Yeah. Just in calling our cycle good, because it is such a part of who we are. And also, like, culture makes so much fun of it. This also kind of drives me crazy. Is we've taught both men and women that it's okay to make fun of women's cycles instead of recognizing it as a beautiful and good thing. That doesn't mean that the occasional tasteful joke is bad, but like.
But some of us have had really difficult experiences.
Yes, and telling women, like,
with the cycle.
Yeah, telling women who are experiencing emotion, like, oh, that's probably because you're PMSing, or making it very, very, very awkward for men to even think about women's cycles at all. Yeah. Making it very, like...
Well, the jokes can make, I don't know, because I'm not a man, but if I was, I would feel like actually more standoffish about asking a woman that I love.
Yeah.
If perhaps she's feeling emotional because of her cycle. And like, that's sad.
Right.
Because I know you and others who have men who love them dearly have actually been the ones just this woman we were talking to this morning.
Oh, yeah.
She was saying that her
fiance is really good about it.
Her fiance will ask her, like, when she's feeling emotional, like, oh, well, you're about to start a new cycle, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes she doesn't even think about it. And she's like, oh, my gosh, you're right. That's why, and we need that.
That's a grace thing. He's giving her grace. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to be able to, I mean, my gosh, a couple of days ago, like a friend of mine just sent me a very innocuous text, and I ended up like crying on my bed, and I was like, oh my Lord, like, what's wrong with me? That's not normal. And then I was like, oh yeah, Oh yeah.
I know what time it is.
We're starting something new
Guess
tomorrow.
what time it is? No, yeah.
You know, and so it seriously is like awareness is a huge thing with the cycle, but also like there needs to be a greater awareness, like as a culture, a society, of the fact that a lot of us come into our womanhood in an excruciatingly uncomfortable and shameful way. And I know I've written about that, but I don't know if I've spoken about it.
I think we did a podcast episode on body image.
Yeah, because I know for me and some others, like I didn't know what my cycle was when it hit me. Like I actually didn't know what was happening.
That's a common experience.
When I started
painful.
menstruating, and that's kind of
it's terrifying,
freaky.
Yeah,
you really feel powerless, and you feel like you feel betrayed by your body sometimes as a woman.
Yeah.
When you're in the dark about these things. And so for everyone else to misunderstand it as well and to mock it.
That's the thing, is the fact that it's become a source of mockery is so unfortunate, because this is where God has like he has made us the safeguards of human life, and this is the way he's chosen to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's made a mockery of it, but it's also taught women that we're victims of our cycle too. That's another word that comes to mind. We victimize ourselves when it comes to our cycle, instead of like that acceptance and giving ourselves grace, and then not giving into our passions. But it's taught us that we're victims of it, of like we can just wreak havoc on our own selves and everyone around us, in our emotion, or in our passions, like that we can just do, we get the free reign to do whatever the heck we want, because poor us, we have these hormonal dips and surges,
right, which are just normal, and you can't do anything about them,
right? And instead
no wonder we let ourselves victimize ourselves, so.
Right, which easily leads to a victimization in your passions in other areas. And I think that's where addiction and fertility awareness go hand in hand as well. Is like you do not have free reign to do whatever you want with your passions. You don't. And your body's not your enemy. Like the pain that you're speaking about, I think it's a common occurrence for women to experience some level of pain and awkwardness in coming into their womanhood, because we live in a fallen world. And oftentimes the way we're educated, or have no education about our sexuality and our cycle, is it's broken. Having no education is broken. And that happens to a lot of women, especially in faith-based spheres, is like, just, we're going to withhold education because talking about sexuality is scary. Yeah. And it's dangerous. Yeah. And all beautiful things are dangerous, like all good things are risky. They have some sort of danger involved. But I think a lot of parents, a lot of educators back down in fear. Like I know I've literally had the discussion with a priest where he said, the church is not the place to talk about pornography addiction. And I was like, I'll do respect, Father, but where is the place then? Yeah. Where is the place?
Sorry, did you want us to do this on Pornhub?
Yeah. No, or just like, where do you expect people to go then? Yeah.
The church is a human.
Yeah.
Like it's divine, but it's a human institution too. It's for humans.
Yes, he came to call sinners.
Interesting.
Or what the scripture verse where he says, like, the healthy do not need a physician, the sick do. Yeah. It's like, where do you expect us to talk about this? But I think the church many times has kind of rescinded education, or not rescinded, but just backed down in the face of the need of education, because it's frightening to do so, and it's hard to do so. So I think a lot of times when women have those experiences of the lack of education, or the pain of coming in with a broken education, you just kind of, you don't know what else to do but to be a victim, or just listen to what the world tells you. Let the world educate you on what your cycle is, and it's something to be mocked, ignored,
something to suppress.
Suppress.
Why don't we just get rid of it? You could pretend you're a man for your whole life instead. Just avoid being reminded every month by sometimes that does sound like an appealing prospect. Yes. No more acne, No more bloating and cramps and the monthly reminder. Your ovaries
I talk to plenty of women who are on
"Nah."
contraception because they don't want to deal with their cycle. And I'm glad you're saying that's an appealing prospect, because I think oftentimes we don't admit that the church's teaching on contraception is, as I've been saying, my pun all weekend is, it's a tough pill to swallow. It is. It's hard.
Yeah.
Dealing with your cycle is hard.
Yeah.
And contraception can be tempting without you, again, being a horrible woman of faith. But I like to our sisters who are on contraception, and trying to deal with sexual sin. I think it's important to know that like your fight will not end unless you come into an acceptance of how your body was made.
And it's not even about like, it's not even completely about like the morality of contraception. Like that matters. Right. That matters. Very this is about you being in touch with yourself.
Yeah, and contraception inherently takes you out of touch.
This is actually about you being in touch with yourself, because there is like a spiritual element to going through the menstrual cycle.
Yes.
Fully woman.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was one of our leaders who brought this question to us several months ago and said that her participants in particular were struggling with how the pain of their period sort of triggered them towards compulsive sexual behavior. And, you know, I was really honest with them, and I know you had some good thoughts about this too, but I was honest with them, and I was like, you know what? I feel that like the older I get, as a single woman, like the cycle reminds me that I'm like, I'm still single. I'm not pregnant. Here we go again, you know, okay, another, you know, it gets tiresome, right? But also because I'm in touch with that, I have to take that to prayer, take ownership, take responsibility, enter into those thoughts and feelings that my body provokes in me. And out of it comes this like crazy, like deeper awareness and peace with myself and my desires. Like I have to come face to face with my desires a little bit more often because I'm fully in touch with myself, like physically, mentally, and spiritually as a woman. And there's a fullness to that and a peace to that and a joy to that, even though it's challenging, that I would not trade.
That's a good word.
For the world. I like in a way, although like sometimes I feel like I won't be fully woman until I enter into, you know, marriage and like have a child, or I won't be fully woman until I know if like God's calling me to be religious, or I won't be fully woman until like I know if this is just like the singlehood that I'm meant to embrace. Like there's a temptation for me as a single woman to be like, I won't be fully woman until, and I feel like God tells me like, no, this is you being fully woman. Accepting the experience day to day of like living in a womanly body, right? Which like we know that actually, and we get this backwards sometimes when we think about it. I've been chewing on this a lot lately. How we often think that like our soul's an expression of our body. Yeah. And it's the opposite. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And you probably know who said this. I don't even remember who, like where this idea comes from, but that our body is actually just an expression of our soul.
It's very JP2's TOV.
Yeah.
He expounds that.
Okay, good. Because I was like, it's either him or Edith Stein or both. I can't remember.
Oh, Edith Stein has a ton to say about spiritual motherhood. Yeah. And in relation to the female body. Absolutely.
Yeah. But just that idea that, no, it's not the case that you're just born into your womanly body and you've got to learn to deal with it. And if you're lucky, there are some spiritual gifts that go along with it. No. Your immortal spirit, your immortal soul is a woman, like it is womanly. And consequently, this is the form that your body has taken. Yeah. And as difficult as it is, and believe me, it's difficult. It gets more difficult with every passing decade to accept womanhood. As difficult as that journey is, it is worthwhile.
That's a good word.
Regardless of where you're at in your vocation.
and the podcast episode ends now.
No. You have some. I know you have some good thoughts on this too.
That's a good word to base kind of everything we're saying on. Yeah, and there's so much debate. There's a lot of controversy actually, like in the theological, philosophical world about gender in the soul, and like, does the soul have gender? Yada yada yada. So we won't even get into that because it can be dense. But I think you summarized it well. That like the life of my soul is informed by being a woman. I cannot get away from it.
Yeah,
you know, I have to have a feminine disposition in my spiritual life because God made me a woman.
And not even have to, but just you do.
But I do. Yeah. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
And I think for married women, the cycle is it's the rhythm of your discernment of the gift of fertility in your life.
Oh, that's such a good way of thinking about it. I never even thought about it that way.
Bringing a spouse in to it, because I liked how you talked about it. It makes you confront your own desires, unfulfilled desires, especially, and bringing them to the Lord. What it does for married couples is it makes you confront the call of what you're supposed to do with your gift of fertility at this time.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to bring that as a couple in front of the Lord. And you're supposed to bring any individual fears or hesitations or idolization or whatever might be going on, like, to the Lord. And I think for women who are infertile or struggling with infertility is a better way to put it. Suffering from infertility, there's a much deeper pain there. I think there's like so many intricate layers that I can't speak to. But just having encountered lots of friends who have just beautifully carried that cross, there is much more of the unfulfilled desire element there, of kind of fusing with the call to marriage. And yeah, but even still, it's still a rhythm of what am I going to do with this gift, and it's beautiful. Like, the women's cycle is the basis of natural family planning. It is like, that's what the entire thing is built around. Without it, you have no tool for discernment there.
Hey, there's a reason why we call it matrimony, not patrimony.
Oh God.
Like, seriously. Matrimony, the making of a mother.
It's true. Yeah.
Sorry, this is why, like, the big day will always be kind of implied, the big day for the woman.
Yeah.
Sorry, men everywhere.
I know
your lives have changed, but like, ours change in a big way.
Yeah.
Whether that's like having a child or coping with infertility, those are like two huge.
Yeah, women are truly the heart of the domestic church. It's true. Like, there's a very unique. Men protect it in an incredible way.
Yes, they're vital.
Yes, but women bear a certain weight and a level of suffering for the sake of the domestic church. It's truly heroic when you see it done well. It's heroic. But I think the cycle is a beautiful rhythm of that, of like, what is our call? Because you do NFP done right, I think. I actually like hate giving any sort of anything on NFP because I think I feel very young in it, as I am. But the worst talk I ever gave, I think I told you this, was on NFP because I was working for the Diocese of Nashville at the time, and our NFP speaker for an engagement retreat dropped out like the week of, and I had been married for a month.
Oh no.
I'd been married for 1 month. And my boss was like, Rachel can speak about it, blah, blah, blah. And oh, it was terrifying. It was a terrible talk to. I did such a horrible job. And I feel bad. I think I gave necessary information, but I did such a horrible job portraying it.
Well,
you know,
the frame of reference was probably
it was so small.
I'm sure you did better than you thought you did.
Oh no, this is not like a moment to comfort me. I think but yeah, but I think NFP done right is you don't really get to make usually, and sometimes you do, but you don't really get to make a plan of like, this is what fertility is going to look like for us for the next 2 to 3 years. You ask the question each time. You ask the question over and over again of, right, what does this month look like for us?
Yeah, because it's a relationship with God. It's embedded in a relationship with God. It's not a 5-year, career plan.
Exactly. And like, how do I, as ovulation rolls around, how do I ask the question again? How do I bring that before the Lord? How do I bring it in conversation with my spouse and in prayer with my spouse before the Lord? How do I bring that awareness in? But in turn, as a married woman, especially like for our married women who are in our groups and part of our community, that's a time of assessing too, if that's a time of increased temptation. Am I answering this temptation with virtue, or am I just taking it out on my spouse? Am I using them as an answer to temptation? Because a lot of people have actually asked me, they're like, well, isn't an answer to sexual addiction in marriage just, to turn your lust towards your spouse? Holy cow. Holy cow. Oh, that terrifies me when I see that just offered in the YouTube comment section. It's a dark world. It's a really dark world. I shouldn't be in the YouTube comment section on videos like ours, but yeah,
but that's kind of crazy, because it's like, try to take another sin and do that. Like, oh my gosh, like if you're like a kleptomaniac or something, well,
why don't you just steal from your grandma?
Why don't I just steal from my husband or something? No, steal from my mom. Like, when has it ever been okay to direct sin and sinful attitude to another person?
Especially a person you love, right?
Yeah, that's the craziest thing, is that like we often struggle the most,
right,
with
loving the people that
we're closest to,
right, and the first being ourselves. I think.
So I can see how that would be like an intuitive thing,
yes,
but not in a good way.
That's not to say, yes, you focus attraction and sexual desire towards your spouse. That's beautiful and good. We have a podcast episode on lust versus desire and how to tell the difference. But yeah, like taking, especially in your cycle, and being like, I'm just going to send all this hormonal energy that direction without examining it more deeply and saying, okay, is this turning into authentic desire and attraction and expression of a vow, or am I kind of just turning unfiltered again, like passions towards a person I should be loving very, very well, and a person I've dedicated like my entire life
right, and
to.
that's key, because like within the passion of lust, if you want to call it that, other passions filter in, like rivulets in a stream. No, so like you could end up displacing your like long day of work into your lovemaking. You could end up displacing your anger at your brother.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Those things have no place.
That's such
in the marriage bed. No,
that's why. No, like that's incredibly wise.
You're married, so you would be able to. But I'm just from the outside that I could see how
single people know things about marriage without being.
Yeah, like I could
very wise.
I could see how that could.
That's very wise.
Things could get displaced into that zone, and it's like no, that's a sacred space.
Let's go at the first principle. It's like is sexuality within my marriage? Is it a place just to direct my passions or not?
Is it a place of love and sacrifice? Just like relieve myself of some this or that.
And this isn't to say I'm not in here saying like it doesn't make it it doesn't not make it easier to say no to sexual compulsion when you have an active sexual relationship with someone. I think it does in a way. Like I think but I also have seen in the dark world of the YouTube comment section, like, well, of course you're not addicted to porn anymore. You're married now. That's kind of horrible. Silly. That's horrible. Yeah. You're seeing a person as a replacement for a dark, dark addiction. Like, yeah, that's horrible.
Almost like a worse problem.
There is something to be said about like there is a very tangible place in marriage to direct. To see the goal, like where is the goal of refining of my sexual desires? Over here. Like there is a very tangible place. So I think that does make it easier. There's a very clear place to strive towards. But yeah, you have to examine month by month as a woman, like making sure, am I still in control here? Am I still am I being a victim to my passions? Am I being a victim to my cycle? and all the questions that it brings into my marriage, just as it brings many questions into the life of a single woman. Am I being a victim here? Because again, we reach that on an emotional level. Am I being a victim to my desire for a spouse that's going unfulfilled? Am I letting that cause me, to fall into despair? Am I being a victim to my desire for a child that's being unfulfilled? Am I allowing that to cause me to despair? Am I being, am I being victim to my fear of having another child? Am I letting that control my life?
Right. Well, and as a single woman, like, am I being a victim to my current vocation as a single woman?
Yeah.
Of not having an explicitly sexual outlet for those things.
Yep.
It's the same thing. It's so easy to think like, oh, to have the physiology of a man,
yeah.
to be just so straightforward. But the thing is, I don't know, because I'm not a man, but something tells me that like men therefore have to go out of their way, perhaps, to reflect on whatever the corollaries of these things are for men.
Oh yeah.
Whereas for us, the process is laid out every month.
Pretty mapped out.
If you want to be in touch with yourself and in tune with yourself, you will not be able to miss it.
Yeah.
You will have a time of the month where you're like bursting at the seams with productivity, and a time of the month where you're more so like just naturally reflective. And that's actually like an embedded gift within the gift
really
of having a cycle. Is that, yeah, if you're really in tune, you can't escape that period of reflection, and therefore you've got a built-in time once a month to sort of reflect and renew.
Yeah.
To start over again, truly. Yeah. So kind of like what you were talking about with, a married couple being thoughtful with discernment, and NFP with the cycle. Like there's a similar thing as a single woman.
Yeah.
Maybe that causes you to think to yourself, like, okay, what am I doing or not doing that God has asked me to do or not do right now?
Yeah. And where am I being called to give life?
Yeah.
And where am I not?
Yeah.
Where am I giving life where it's not supposed to be? Where am I giving my life where it's not supposed to be?
Yeah.
Or where am I spending myself?
Or like real talk, maybe like, yeah, you get to the end of that cycle and you're like, oh, you like, I don't know if this is weird or if other women are going to relate to this. Like, the more as the years go on for me, like it's a very clear sort of experience of like, oh yeah, okay, we got through another cycle. We're not pregnant. We're not even like, we're not even dating anyone. And maybe that's actually like the harsh sort of reality check you need to be like, what are you doing about it? Yeah. Why don't you go join that, lecture series? Why don't you go put yourself out there? Oh, you're scared? Why? What, have you explored?
I was wondering if we were going to hit this because I think this is huge.
Yeah, it's huge. Well, it's been huge for me. Yes. Have you explored the little pockets and corners of your heart that for some reason are like just so resistant and avoidant? Right. And other women have an opposite experience as me. Like they're just like boy crazy and like all over it. Like
that's the opposite extreme.
I could not
that's disordered as well.
Relate less to that, but that is just the other pendulum swing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Both are equally disordered.
Yes. Yeah. You could get to the end of your cycle and be like, wow, I just had like a renegade mission to flirt with every male that I passed by for the last month. And maybe you need to like reflect on that or something. Right. The way it's played out in my life has been like, well, what the frick were you doing to like be open and put yourself out there? And this is like a real talk that I have to have with myself. Not easy.
That's a good word.
Sorry.
That is also a good word.
You have to be humble and honest with yourself.
Right.
And then find some new small way to, take action and be courageous.
Right.
In the coming month, whatever that means for you, dialing back, dialing in, committing to counseling, committing to like changing your diet up, committing to, listen, ladies, if you need confidence boosts, like seriously, start exercising. I'm so sorry. I once heard someone say like, oh, exercise, like it's just not for me. I think I've literally had this moment on the podcast before. It's for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't care if you go lift weights for 5 minutes.
Or you go on a walk for 15 minutes.
Or you go on a walk for 15 minutes. That will do something
activities
to your body confidence, which every woman needs.
Right.
But yeah, oftentimes like that, this is what I mean, is that, you know, as much as the cycle feels like a curse sometimes, especially as a single woman, because you're kind of just like, God, what a useless thing.
Right.
I'm just bleeding out once a month for frigging nothing. Like, I'm not having children.
What is this for?
I'm not, right. You just feel like, what a waste of my like time and emotional energy. Like, do we really have to go through this again? Like again and again, once a month.
Right.
Couldn't it have been like twice a year or something?
Something occasional.
I'm sorry if you've never been there, you just think you haven't. Like tap into like
You've
your feelings for a second.
it.
Like we all get frustrated about being a woman at some point.
Right.
But like I've in that frustration, I have had to realize that there's a gift in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is coming to mind just kind of in thinking about temptation too. Like right as you said that, just reframing the fact that most women perhaps have a time in their cycle that's more tempting, reframing that as a gift. You get a chance to really examine in that season what that's for. And actually I think this is also why, kind of related thought, but a little bit of a tangent. This is why it is so important for women to have their own resources for recovery. This is part of why we exist, is because women cannot recover with male recovery models.
No.
It does not work.
No.
Because the way that men refuse to become victims of their passions, the way that men become men of virtue, the way that men spiritually, physically, emotionally respond to sexual temptation, it is different. It is different. And all we've offered any porn addict for a long time is a male model, because addicts were primarily male, or everybody thought they were
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time. And a lot of male recovery models really prioritize physical discipline, which is beautiful for men. For women, that works for certain parts of the cycle. It doesn't work for every single part.
No.
And actually, a lot of times how we defeat what causes women shame, which is often bodily, right? There's a lot of bodily dissatisfaction or insecurity, which we've spoken into as an organization.
And shame is such a physiological emotion.
Right.
I mean, every emotion is.
Women experience emotions in their bodies in a completely different way. But this is probably the most
overwhelming negative emotion in the world is shame.
Right. And men experience shame differently than women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think oftentimes how we defeat, especially when I'm thinking of the phase of ovulation and PMS, actually, is like how we defeat that feeling of shame and that feeling of being, overwhelmed by temptation is often not by, I'm going to beat the heck out of my body. I'm going to fast. I'm going to, like all of these, I'm going to go on an 8-mile run. Although for some women that might be an answer.
If you're ovulating, go for an 8-mile run.
That might be it. But oftentimes how we defeat the shame that might be beneath our triggering is by that authentic self-care of I'm going to exercise in a way that honors my body and builds my strength in a way that's reasonable. I'm going to cook myself a good meal. And I love how you talk about during ovulation, I'm going to fill my social calendar.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend myself in love for my community and my friends.
Yeah.
And my God.
And I am going to have a harder workout that day.
Yeah.
And I'm going to feel like a freaking queen.
Yeah. But I think the social calendar thing is huge.
It is.
It's like,
don't be alone.
Relationship is huge.
Ladies, don't be alone when you're ovulating.
In recovery. Yeah, don't be alone when you're ovulating. No, but because what are you longing for when you're ovulating? You're longing
for intimacy.
For intimacy and to give life.
Intellectual, physical, emotional. Not people hear the word intimacy and they feel kind of like, yeah.
That word makes me uncomfortable. Like the word moist makes
physical.
me uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like intimacy is just like this beautiful reality in all of our relationships. We're all meant for it.
Yeah.
We're all meant for different levels of it in different relationships. And we're also meant for different kinds of intimacy, spiritual, intellectual, emotional, physical. If you're not aware of the fact that you have all of these categories of needs and that, you know, you should be fulfilling, you know, finding some fulfillment in them, in your relationships.
Yeah.
That's painful.
I think
that's painful. You know, expect your friendships and family relationships and, you know, dating, if that applies, expect them to fulfill your needs for intimacy. Seek that out. Look for that, you know? And, you know, we never expect perfection, but that shouldn't be the voice in your head telling you not to expect anything. You deserve that.
Yes. And I think that your cycle, paying attention to that too, like which relationships fill you and in which ways. Yeah. Ovulation is a great time to speak to those friends that fill you, like those people in your life that really fill you. Yeah. Like where it's this nice give and take.
And like, just to have some fun, because
like some fun.
Wow, the energy is there.
The energy is there.
You know. But yes, I'm and
it's good energy.
Yeah.
Ultimately in itself.
But yeah, I think that what we're getting at is like it's just the acceptance of yourself as a woman. It sounds simple and it's life altering, because we live in a culture that would just rather we all be men. Right. Frankly. I mean, seriously. Yeah. You know, and I thought about this a lot when I was I had the pleasure and the fun experience of going to a CrossFit gym for several months while I was with my immediate family back home before I started this new program that I'm doing. And like in every gym and that one included, it's like the expectation is like every day to the max. Right? Show up, and every day you do it, and you do it to the max, you know? But I realized like, oh, you know, I had 13 classes a month to go to. I realized like, nope, we need to stagger this and schedule this out. We're going to go maybe like 5 times in the week that, you know, our energy is hype and we're ovulating. We're going to go for those lifting days then, right? And then like maybe less strenuous in the last week of the cycle. Smart. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Stop expecting yourself to be a man, whatever that means for you in your life, physically, mentally, spiritually.
And in recovery, stop expecting yourself to be a man.
Emotionally, yes, especially in your recovery. Stop expecting yourself to be a man.
Yes.
You're a woman. It's a beautiful thing.
Your recovery is going to be different.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't listen to men speaking about pornography and recovery. Doesn't mean you can't listen to their advice, because it's incredibly sound. I'm thinking of Matt Fradd in particular. Like, gives sound advice, but he's not a woman.
No,
that's the first thing he says.
There's plenty of crossover, but I feel like one of the most surprising things and the most like touching things that I've learned in the last several years of working together and doing this mission and getting to know the hearts of the women that we serve better has been, my God, what a need for just gentility. Yeah. Because like we constantly, and I know we underestimate how deeply these wounds and experiences of our feminine identity touch us to the core. And I was telling you the other night, and I'll mention it again, that, you know, I'm not a big crier. Never have been, for both, you know, healthy and unhealthy reasons. But regardless, the only session, there were maybe 2, the only session of my experience thus far with counseling, with therapy, where I felt like I was going to burst into tears were ones involving wounds of like men in my family. Yeah. I was so... I was so utterly shocked by how deeply I was affected by those, you know, and it wasn't until getting into them that I realized that like, oh, okay, I've been like walking around like, yes, I'm a woman, but what does that really mean? Just in my life, that's just meant like, just be strong all the time. and just take care of everyone.
Yeah.
And like, that's not it.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That's not all you were meant for. So I don't know if any of you listening to this, like, if you feel that, stop applying that expectation to your recovery. That you're just going to
be strong and just take care of it.
Yes, that you're just going to be strong and take care of it. Ain't going to work, honey.
No. I think men are greatly motivated by something similar to that, though. By the be strong. Mm-hmm. You are not a machine. You are a man. Yeah. Be strong. And rise up. I think there's something really invigorating about that for men. But for women, it creates what you just pointed out is there's no one to protect you, so do it for yourself. Go take care of it for yourself.
Original sin.
Yeah. And for women instead, like what we found, because, you know, like when we started the group at Ave, I'm thinking about like I came in guns blazing and I was like, we're going to do all the intense thing. Yeah.
And it was a glorious thing.
Then I sat on the sidelines and said, you're like, hold on.
Something about this is amiss.
Well, yes, because how much did we have to go off of, right? We had nothing. We had Audrey Assad's YouTube testimony, and we were on fire.
You go, Audrey. Thank you, Audrey, for breaking that ice.
We had self-printed posters, and we were on fire. Anyway, but what I discovered as the leader that year, and then just as you and I have kind of learned together, is what really motivates women to recover, and what motivated me is just like, you are so beautiful and you are so worthy of love, and the way your body is made, the way your soul is made, the way you are crafted is meant to give life, and so press into that. You are a steward of life. And I think that's the pain that we feel when we're caught in sexual sin, is like, I'm turning away from that call to give life spiritually, physically.
Right.
I'm turning away from that right now. I'm betraying that right now. That's what causes a lot of our pain and shame. But it's that gentleness of pressing in of like, give life. You are a life giver. Like, that's what you do. It's not be strong, take care of it yourself. It's like, give yourself. Yes, take care of yourself. Honestly, take care of yourself so that you can give life to others. But that gentleness of inviting back into life, that's what, like, oh, you're beautiful. You're meant to give life. And that's why we see like group recovery is so powerful. We're going to get into a different topic here, but like that is what is so powerful about women recovering in small groups together in an intentional, closed, confidential community where it's not people coming in and out. It's like I journey with this specific group of women is because this is a place where I can give life. Yeah. And this is a place where we can hold each other up, where I don't have to be strong and do it by myself. This is like we're carrying each other.
Yeah. And you do learn to be strong for each other.
Absolutely.
Like, this is a serious way that the people like me become engaged in the group, because they're like, oh, I need to fight so that, like, you know.
Well, yeah, because you're recovering.
Little Annie over here, like, fights too. Like, rise together, you know, like, this is.
Yeah. And I do think men have a similar, something like, yeah, they have something similar in like a sense of brotherhood and recovery. Right.
But some
men I've spoken with. Yeah.
But sometimes as you're learning to be more gentle with the women in your group.
Yeah. You're like, let me take care of you.
You realize, oh my gosh, maybe I should talk to myself a little bit like that too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I am little so-and-so in my group who needs encouragement. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah, you become aware of your own vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
But you recognize that they're not a curse.
Yeah.
Like, they're a huge gift.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we better wrap this one up too. I think this one turned out longer than our last one, ironically, because we were like, oh, this could be a short episode.
It can never be short.
Just like our meetings are never short. I hope the world knows, or not the world, the Magdala world knows. Like, Mary Jo and I, when we meet once a week, we meet for about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
We're always like, we can keep it to an hour today. No.
That's a lie.
No. There's no such thing as a short meeting that you and I are involved in, because we love what we do so much. So much, and we think about it even in our sleep. Anyway,
thanks for letting us rant to you about ovaries for an hour.
Yes, but practically speaking, Mary Jo pointed out, I was trying to say pointed after saying your name, pointed out some good things about like nutrition, paying attention to nutrition during your cycle. Annie Hayen, who is our administrative coordinator, is a nutritionist. And I think she talked about in that group chat interaction that we had on this question, she said prioritizing magnesium and B6 during like the pain of your cycle. Yeah. She said that was huge, like increasing those. And was it calcium was the last one? I don't want to recommend. I mean, calcium is always a good thing, but I don't want to recommend something that's not helpful.
Yeah. Well, and we can, I don't know if you put things in show notes, yes, or we can have like a little blog post later, because I have a article I often reference that I used to make a chart. We could just like hand out the chart.
We can pop it in the show notes
to people, because yes, this blew my mind that actually sometimes of the month there are certain foods you can have that help your liver to detoxify hormone waste, and certain times of the month there are certain foods that you should be having to, like, you know, assist your follicles in the follicular phase and things like that. And
we're all about detoxifying hormone waste.
Yeah. But one major plug-in for dear former practitioner of mine, Teresa Kenny, who works for the Pope Paul VI Institute. She's begun a fantastic podcast series called The Hormone Genius. Ladies, if you're curious about hormones, you want to learn a little bit, do yourself a favor if you want to learn just a little bit more about the gifts that you embody as a woman. Hop over to the Hormone Genius and check that out.
The Pope Paul VI Institute also is a very good resource. I think if you are looking for an easy way to begin tracking your cycle, the app Fem can be very helpful for beginners because it is a little more involved than your typical period tracker. I know the Clue app was the one I used for a long time in college, but it kind of ended up being limited in its information. 28 from Evie is that app that recommends nutrition and exercise based on the phase of your cycle. And from everything I saw, that's just the first of its kind. Like, I'm so excited about that resource. That's so crazy.
I want to check that out.
It's great. And they have like videos, so you can pull up the workouts.
Wow.
So I'm really excited about that resource.
And I use Kindara,
okay,
for personally, because when I went to Abby Johnson's first conference, Pro-Life Women's Conference in Texas several years ago, a group of wonderful, beautiful, like, Catholic practitioners got together and made a list of the best apps at the time, so it might be outdated, but I've enjoyed Kindara for years. It's sweet, simple, but good app that also lets you put in a little more than just a period tracker would. So,
and I think if you want to learn a fertility awareness method, so I'm 2 months postpartum, so I haven't had a normal cycle in almost a year. I love Marquette. I've been a big fan of Marquette for natural family planning purposes. But when I was in college and afterward as a single woman, I benefited greatly from Creighton. Yeah. I think Creighton makes you incredibly aware of your body, how it's operating, what's going on when. It makes you keep track of it. Yeah. As you said earlier, with these old-fashioned stickers. And when you're ovulating, it's little baby stickers.
Yeah, they're freaky little stickers.
I'm kind of creeped out. But they're effective in the sense that you can look at a chart very clearly. And you can do the same in Marquette, but I don't recommend it for self-knowledge.
Creighton is the most effective model for anything that could be medically related.
Yes.
If you think that you might need hormone replacement therapy, if you think that you might have PCOS or endometriosis, find a NAPRO technician, learn Creighton model charting, get some accurate blood work that's actually based in your physiology, not just like what doctors think your cycle should be, but what's actually going on.
Yes.
Because you're worth that time and effort.
Yes. And NAPRO is huge. There's a database of them online, like where you can find a NAPRO technician, and a lot of them are starting to do telemed, recognizing that there are not enough. There
are literally, like, I think still, I don't know, I could check this, but there are probably like 50 or less surgeons in the world still who know how to do the surgeries that Dr. Hildress made for endometriosis and PCOS.
Yeah.
Which is mind-blowing.
I had to drive 2 hours to see an APRO in Tennessee.
Yeah.
There's only one. I think.
But they exist. They're out there, and they're
do.
wonderful, wonderful people.
Yes.
Who are ready to help you.
And I think kind of as like the conclusion of this is like all of the practical resources help you, but with temptation in your cycle and understanding your fertility, but they don't help you if you don't give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And if you don't honor your cycle as something good and given to you by God, even if it's painful, even
like, if it's troubled and imperfect.
Yes, exactly.
There's
like
a
I'm
gift
thinking
in
of
that.
my friends with endometriosis and PCOS particularly.
Those are so painful.
Yes, even if it's a source of pain, God is there, and he did not like make your body to be your enemy. So I think all of these practical things, just as in recovery in general, the practicals will help you, but not if you do not allow God to accompany you on the journey of recovery. So but yes, any more concluding thoughts on fertility awareness and recovery?
No, ma'am.
All right, well, that concludes our episode on ovaries.
Slam
Stamp.
dunk.
Anyway, thank you for joining us on the Magdala podcast. And to our listeners, as usual, if you would like more exclusive content, join us on Patreon. That's also where Magdala gets the support we need to continue doing what we're doing. So we're grateful for all of our current and future patrons. And as usual, you're all in our prayers. And the link for joining a group is always open. It's in the show notes. And if you're interested in being a small group leader as well, you can follow that link. We are always looking for new leaders to come and join us in our mission. And if you would like to try Covenant Eyes for a month, you can use the code Magdala and get 30 days free. I always forget that one at the end and don't want to forget it this time. But blessings on you all and peace in Christ, especially as you pursue regaining that innocence, whether you're a man or woman. Listening to us, we're praying for you as you go about becoming more and more identified with being a child of God instead of in your sin. God bless you all, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks for joining the conversation today on the Magdala podcast. If you want to learn more, join a support group with other women on the journey, or find more content, visit magdalaministries.org. If you want to continue to be a part of the conversation, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. But most importantly, wherever you are in the journey of healing, know that you're not alone and you don't have to hide anymore. We're excited to welcome you to the table next time. God bless.